On behalf of Murphy Brothers Contracting, welcome one and all to today's continuing education presentation for building design professionals and others. We have a lot of different people on the call today. We have a lot to cover in our brief time together, so let's get started.
Welcome, everybody, to what I think you're going to find is an amazing presentation, a couple of them, actually. But the first one is Chris Galarza, who is an esteemed entrepreneur, author, public speaker, and podcaster, but most importantly, a chef, widely renowned throughout everywhere, really, as a leading authority in commercial electric kitchen. He collaborates with governments, manufacturers, brands, designers, and fellow chefs, especially for you out there today, to establish enduring and environmentally friendly culinary ecosystems that you'll find help you be more productive, get more food, have happier staff, reduce your energy costs, and a whole bunch more. He's been featured in Time, CNN, Bloomberg, and the Nova documentary, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to Chef Chris. Chef, take it away.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the invitation to come out. Any opportunity I can to talk about something I care so deeply about, it's always a pleasure. So as Ron so eloquently put, my name is Chef Chris Galarza. I'm the founder of Forward Dining Solutions. A little bit about my background. I have a bachelor's degree in culinary management. I've had the pleasure of working with several master chefs and culinary Olympians. I was an apprentice at the Greenbrier. I've done everything from small mom and pop restaurants to 5-star, 5-diamond resorts. And now I consult full-time on kitchen electrification. I got that background while working at Chatham University, where we built the world's first fully self-sustained university campus, and by virtue of that, America's first all-electric campus kitchen. So what does Forward Dining Solutions do? Well, we help designers sustainably build kitchens of the future. We're the first and only firm in the country. I can't say the world. I can't find anybody that does it, but I can't say the world yet. First and only firm focused exclusively on this subject. We're a chef-owned company as well, and we are now able to fully decarbonize your buildings based off our partnership with another New York-based company called Bright Power. We are able to do domestic hot water, financing, kitchens, you name it. So before we go into the subject about kitchen electrification, I'd like to present this little video here as a way to kind of break down some of those barriers that people may have on what this actually is. Cooking is not about your fuel source. It's about fundamentals and techniques. And I think this does a good job at showing how our world is already electrified. And yeah, let's just go into it. So I appreciate you all sitting through that. I know it could be a little silly, but the truth is that mostly everything around us is electrified. In your home, as an example, there's really 3, maybe 4 things that are gas powered. Your stove more than likely being one of them. So what is an electric kitchen? What is induction cooking? What are these solutions that we keep talking about? So first off, it's good to get past what people initially think induction is. Obviously, it's not gas, but it's also not these coils that we all know and loathe, or the glass tops that glow red, or other radiant sources of cooking. What induction cooking is, it's a safer way of cooking, and it's a way of using electromagnetic currents to heat the cooking vessel, which is also an easy way of meeting your sustainability goals while also saving yourself some money. The way it works is that there's a copper coil that's underneath the glass surface, and you send an electrical current through it. And as you do that, it's going around and around and creates what's called an eddy current. That eddy current excites the ferromagnetic molecules in your pan. And that molecular friction as it's jumping around is what creates the heat. Similar to how your microwave will excite the water molecules in your food and heat the food up from the inside out. That's what we're doing. So we're able to heat things incredibly fast using essentially magnets, which means there's no thermal sources. So your kitchen stays a lot more comfortable. So pros and cons of induction. First and foremost, it's very high efficient. We're talking 80 to 93% versus the traditional 35% you see with gas. You really don't go beyond 35, maybe 40. But truth be told, in the hands of a professional like myself, it can go as far as the teens to maybe the 20s. We're really, really bad at energy efficiency as chefs. We don't use the equipment as efficient as it could be. And because of that, we're throwing away money. So for every dollar you're spending on gas, you're probably throwing away 80 cents. Not just throwing it away, but throwing it into your space, which is heating up your kitchen, which is making your electricity bill go up when your air conditioner is working that much harder to maintain the temperature. It heats up really, really fast. There's precise temperature adjustments. There's no idling equipment. There's no combustion, which means there's no carbon monoxide or other harmful pollutants, which we'll touch on later. There's a dramatic improvement of thermal comfort, and it's also going to extend the life of your pots and pans. So no more carbon buildup, no more hot and cold spots, no more warping. These pots and pans you'll buy once and they'll last for a really long time. As an example, we bought the pots and pans at Chatham in 2015, and I was just there like 2 days ago. And there's the ones that I bought are still there, right? So that's 8 years. And they look just as they did when they came out of the box. Cons, the initial costs, right? There are folks who are concerned with how much induction costs. You're really not seeing that great of a disparity, but there is an upfront cost. Where the savings is in the back end. We can touch on that later. Compatible cookware, folks think you need special pans. All you need is a pan that can, have a magnet stick to it. But again, you buy it once, it's going to last you. And also the retrofit hurdle, right? Do you have the capacity to in your panels to do this? How much is it going to cost you to upgrade? These are all valid concerns, and these are things that we work through our clients as we design and build these kitchens. Now, this is the heavyweight bout, right? This is what people want to see: gas versus electric. What are the comparisons? How is this actually going to affect my business? There's a conversation on climate change, but it doesn't help with dollars and cents. It doesn't help with the clients. So what is it going to actually do? So that gas range, we're going to give it the best possible chance of success. We're going to say it's a 50% efficient gas range, which means you can cook 38.6 pounds of food per hour. Now, those who haven't cooked or kind of cleaned one of these ranges should know that it's going to take a decent amount of elbow grease to clean. If you really take the time to do it right, it's going to take you about 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. All the while, it's going to cause you burns, it's going to cause you fires. That's happened to me. It's happened to friends of mine. It's happened to everyone in the industry. It's just a fact of life. Now, to do this properly, you're going to scrub this down. You're going to pull the grates off, soak them in a compartment sink. Do the same thing for the burners. You're going to take a toothpick, go to every single hole, make sure there's nothing obstructing the flow of gas. Soak that. You're going to scrub the whole piece of equipment down. You're actually going to pull the drip tray out, dump the contents, pull the foil off, degrease that, wipe that down, put the foil back on, put the drip tray back in, go back to the sink, scrub everything back down, dry everything off, then reassemble everything, and please don't forget to light the pilot lights. That can take you a decent amount of time. But with induction, we're talking 90+% efficient, 70.9 pounds of food per hour. So now we're nearly doubling the amount of throughput. And we'll talk about why in a second. And it's a lot easier to clean. It'll take you about 60 seconds, really. Your hot soapy water is all you need. So now you're not purchasing those harmful degreasers, and which is lowering now your labor costs, because now you're saving about 30 minutes of cleanup time. You're now saving on the amount of water needed. You're now saving on the amount of chemicals purchased. You see how these savings add up, and imagine per shift, per shift, per week, per month, per quarter, per year, the savings really, really adds up. It's a lot safer to use as well. So if you spill cream on it, just wipe it off and move on. The handles aren't going to be hot. The only thing that's getting hot is the part that's actually touching the surface. Now, when we talk about efficiency, what that means is the amount of energy actually reaching the food. So with a 30,000 BTU range, you're only at best getting 10,000 BTUs to the food. But a 5 kilowatt hob is getting 14,000 BTUs to the food, which is why we're able to speed up the amount of cooking. A wok, as an example, can get you about 20,000 BTUs to the food at best. Now, these other two comparisons here, these are plug-in countertop versions, and you can see that they're actually putting out a lot of heat. But this is one that's actually one-to-one comparison that'll be the swap out. And you can see they're putting out 35,000 BTUs to the food. In fact, we have one installed in Microsoft. They don't go past half power. They're cooking about 10,000 meals a day. So energy costs. Folks often associate gas with being a cheaper fuel. So let's put that to the test. Assuming you're going to be operating your kitchen for 360 days a year for 15 hours a day, and you're paying $1 per therm, that 6-burner gas range is going to cost you $1,123 a year to operate. Now, with the same assumptions, you're paying now 17 cents per kilowatt hour. You're spending $1,114 a year to operate. Now, I'm not here to tell you that, hey, switch to induction, I could save you $9 a year. The truth is, this is just to outline how the myth of the cost of energy really is, because it doesn't matter how cheap your energy is, it matters how well you use it. And the truth is, these numbers are kind of fudged, because the cost of gas has more than doubled since we did this analysis. So the cost of running that gas range is going to be a lot higher than that induction, which has stayed the same. Now, thermal comfort is one that folks never really take into account. Like when you're building your kitchen, how's this going to make your staff feel? So there was a study that was done where they looked at over 100 kitchens between summer and winter conditions. All climate zones are represented, and they tested between cooking, prepping, and cleaning. Now, the thermal comfort range was anywhere from 60 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on the level of humidity. And they found that kitchens were far hotter. Now, this isn't new for anybody, like, oh yeah, kitchens are hot. But what's new is that when you go into, this is what we think of when we're chefs. We're working really fast. And if you read Kitchen Confidential, you remember the passage of the fat Italian chef passing out because it's too hot in the kitchen, it's too humid in the kitchen. But that's just the reality. I mean, I can tell you that there's been times where I've looked down at my thermometer in my chef coat reading 135, and in between rushes we'd be throwing up. That's what chefs go through. Maybe that's an extreme, but that is what chefs they experience on a regular basis. But when you work in an electric kitchen, you have more natural sunlight, you have a cooler kitchen, things are faster, things are more efficient, people are calmer because they're more comfortable, guest satisfaction survey scores go up like ours did. And here's the data to prove it. Electric kitchens, okay, let's back up. We took this data between September 9, 2019 and September 16, 2019. Now you can look it up. This is Gibsonia, Pennsylvania. And we found that the whole week, outside temperature was from 85 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. The whole week, prepping, cleaning, cooking, the whole nine, we never hit 74 degrees Fahrenheit. So on average, we were around 70, 71, which means that there was a 60-degree drop from what I was experiencing from a traditional kitchen to the induction kitchen. That's a massive drop. Now, there's also health considerations, right? What are you doing to yourself when you're burning fossil fuels? When you burn fossil fuels, you are releasing things like carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, sulfur dioxide, formaldehyde, other particulates like soot, smoke, things that can really be harmful to your lungs. But more importantly, you're also releasing carbon monoxide. Now, we're going to focus on that because we usually have carbon monoxide sensors in our homes or in our work or whatever the case is. So what is carbon monoxide? It is an odorless, colorless toxin where typical outdoor concentrations are anywhere from 0.03 to 2.5 parts per million. Why I say that is because the outdoor federal standards say that you cannot exceed 9 parts per million. The reason I bring up outdoor is because there are no indoor air quality standards in America. But when you cook with natural gas, it can far exceed 200 parts per million. So that's dangerous. We know that because symptoms are nausea, vomiting, headache, lightheadedness. Does that ring a bell to anybody? Complications of permanent brain damage, cardiac damage, and in extreme cases, even death. So it's a very serious thing that we take into account our indoor air quality. The closest to America that we can get to see what indoor air quality standards are is in Canada, where they say that you cannot exceed 10 parts per million. And we are, as you see, far exceeding that. Now, you may be thinking, hey, like, okay, whatever, I have a hood system, but you're still standing over that flame. You're still breathing all that in. It's got to pass through you to go through the hood system. So it's still a dangerous thing. Now, what are the benefits to electrifying? Because we couldn't talk about everything in just this condensed version of this presentation. The idling equipment, as you see with this grill, is non-existent. There's a reduction in building emissions, which is reducing the overall environmental impact. it's going to operate more efficiently, which is going to save you on utility and energy costs. There's a precision to it that just you can't get with gas. If I were to say, hey, put that pan on high, what does high mean? What's the temperature of that pan? But if I were to say set that pan to 435, it's within 1 degree of 435. There's a dramatic improvement of thermal comfort. Extended life, it's going to extend the life of your pots and pans. It's going to be easier to clean, which is going to save you on chemical costs. Faster throughput, which is an increase in productivity, as well as a vast improvement in dollar per labor hour, and has also improved thermal comfortability. Now, the improved indoor air quality. Now, myth busting, and then we'll get to the end real fast. So these are things I've heard chefs actually say in the field of why, or excuses as to why they can't switch. The first is they don't believe that you can produce quality food on induction. That's simply not true. The Fat Duck and the Noma prove that. The Culinary Olympics and the Bocuse d'Or also do the same. In fact, there are Michelin star restaurants in America, like 165 in San Francisco. In fact, my old boss, Chef Rich Rosendale, opened up a restaurant in Atlanta earlier this year, which is Atlanta's first all-electric and all-ventless restaurant. And he's a world-renowned certified master chef. So the truth is, high-quality chefs see the value in this technology and they embrace it. Every international culinary competition in the world is all electric. This isn't a new thing, it's just new in the States. And just to quickly run through some of these, cooking speeds are exaggerated, as we just talked about how the throughput is far higher because we're getting much more energy to the food. That's myth busted. Sauteing is impossible on induction. This one's my personal favorite. They say that because once you lift the pan off the range, it's not connected. Because it's not connected, they say it's not going to stay hot. What are you going to do? And I had to remind this chef, who I will say was working for a rather large tech company, making a lot of money, that once he pulls the pan off the range, the flame doesn't follow as well. It seems silly to say out loud, but that's true. So the same principles apply. You lift the pan, you saute, you put it back, it stays hot. Metal's hot. It just is what it is. They also say you can't preheat your pans because you really don't have to with induction. If you watched the documentary at Nova, you'd see that I pulled the saute pan out of the freezer, chock full of ice. I dumped the ice, wiped the pan, tossed vegetables in, and we started sauteing immediately. There's no need to preheat. We went from a frozen pan to a full saute within seconds. Cooking with gas gives you more control. That's the theater piece of it, right? We see a big flame, so we think big heat. But the truth is, it doesn't give us more control. It gives us the illusion of control. We have far more control with induction than we do with gas. And it's just true. Because again, I can say, hey, Ron, I need you to go ahead and sear out short ribs at 440 degrees Fahrenheit for 4 minutes on each side and braise it at 185 for 6 hours. We have far more consistency than if I said, just sear them and braise them at medium low, because you have medium, you have low, and there's a big gap, right? And contrary to popular belief, you can't under and over braise meats. And who's to say what is medium low if your range hasn't been serviced? So it's just not a very good way of operating. So if anyone's been to a restaurant on Monday and it's different from a Friday, we know why. There's a lack of consistency there. Induction cooking technology does not accommodate wok cooking. That's simply not true. In fact, you don't have to take my word for it. Go talk to Martin Yen. He cooks on an induction wok. He talks about how in Beijing, every new restaurant going in has an induction wok. This is not a new technology. In fact, it's just new in America, but the solutions are out there. And finally, glass surfaces are going to crack and warp. Chefs truly believe that they are this big behemoth and they're going to break everything. They're bulls in China shops, but the truth is, you're going to have to really try to break these things. They're not made out of traditional glass or even tempered glass. They're made out of a substance called tempered ceramic glass. Now, tempered glass could withstand temperatures up to 600 degrees Fahrenheit. Tempered ceramic glass can far exceed 1400 degrees Fahrenheit. And I don't see anything in your kitchen getting that hot. Finally, some resources. If you want to learn more about this, we co-authored a guide called the Decarbonization Guide, along with William J. Worthen and some other friends in the industry. And it is the most comprehensive guide ever written on the subject of building decarbonization, and it is 100% free. Our chapter 5, specifically touches on kitchens. And again, the most comprehensive guide. The only other guide that touches kitchens has 2 pages dedicated, and we have 65, and it's going to be growing every year. So please, if you want to learn more about that, go to my website, forwarddiningsolutions.com. Under the resource tab, it'll send you you will then be able to go and download it. And finally, we are actually working on commissioning a study to look at the exposure rates of hospitality workers in traditional kitchens versus the new kitchens. Data will not be shared out. We are paying restaurants and paying these kitchens for their time as well. We're hoping to kick off phase 2 of the study next year. So if you want to sign up, feel free to take a picture of that email address. If it's easier for you, go to my website, again, forwarddiningsolutions.com, and there is a tab for the kitchen study. Just fill out your information, and once we're ready to start contacting folks, we will. And that's as fast as I can get through it. So thank you, everybody, for being here, and I'll take your questions.
Chef, thank you so much. That was great. All right, here we go. First question. What about the hood? Can I use a less powerful range hood?
So you can get around some things like that. So you still need a hood no matter what. You create a certain amount of grease-laden vapor that has to be exhausted out. But there are things that you won't have to temper as much air coming back in. Therefore, it's going to save on energy costs. You can actually reduce the size of the hood. You could actually what I've done at a school here in Pittsburgh actually is we were able to cut the hood system in half by strategically utilizing some ventless options. So yeah, there's some things you can do to kind of creatively get around that. But I will also say that the Oakview Group, which is one of the largest groups who owns like venues and stuff like that, they've announced they're going to go all electric and all ventless for all their locations globally. So every stadium that they're in, every concert hall that they're in, is going to be all electric and it's going to be ventless. So there's no ductwork.
Wow. So obviously that saves a significant amount of cost. How about fire department approvals, et cetera?
Yeah, no, all that stuff's good to go. I mean, like the ventless equipment, for example, it has a built-in Ansel system and all these things. So you could put it literally anywhere. So in Rich Rosendale's example, he wanted to be in this historic building. So he just brought in ventless equipment. So that way you don't have to worry about permanently altering a historic building.
Fantastic. All right. Well, next question. If the gas emitted from gas ranges is so dangerous, why haven't we heard about it before?
We have. That's the thing. So the first studies linking gas stoves to like asthma and things like that actually happened in the 70s. Really now hearing about it now. So for 50 years, studies have been coming out regularly linking childhood asthma and every other thing under the sun to gas stoves. And the CPSC was asked to look into this by the EPA a couple of times. Things just never got traction. It's only recently, as we become more aware of public health, more aware of climate change, that people are actually making a big splash about it. It's unfortunate it's taken to the point where, as polarized as we are, any little conversation about anything changing, people lose their minds, and that's where we are nationally. So people lost their minds because someone had the audacity to say, yeah, we're going to look into ways to make gas stoves safer, and they took it as Biden's trying to take your gas stove, even though I've never seen Ted Cruz and Joe Biden agree on anything, and they agree that's not happening. So it's crazy.
All right, another question. If I have an electric stove already, will I have approximately enough electric power for an induction cooktop?
Depends. So commercially or residential? So commercially, I would say probably, because you would probably have a 220 3-phase already. So you would be good. Residentially, probably not. Now, that's actually two answers there. So the reason why probably not for residential is depends on what you go for. So you can go for the Channing Copper, which is a new one that just came out that actually has batteries installed. So you can just plug right into your 110 because they realize at home you're only going to cook a couple of times a day, maybe, right? So while you're not cooking, it's replenishing that battery. But if you do want to get like the big show off induction range, you can do that. You're just going to have to put in another like a 220. So it depends.
All right, so to replace our home gas range with an induction, about what can I expect to spend?
Good question. So as we come to the end of the year, those rebates from the Inflation Reduction Act are going to be coming out. So you're going to expect to spend less than that on a gas stove because that's $840 back in your pocket. Plus they have money for in case you need to do any sort of I think it's $250 towards any sort of upgrades. So if you need to run conduit or whatever, like there's money there. So at IKEA right now, last week I saw $1,100 for an induction range. So take out $840, you're left with $260, $360, something like that. So I mean, it really depends on what you go for.
Cool. How do I grill my steaks?
With a grill. So there are electric grills out there. In fact, I know of a company right now that's working on one that is using infrared technology because the flavor of grill is just carcinogenic burn off a fat meeting flame, right? So soot. That's essentially what the flavor of grilling is. You can argue all day long about whatever you want to say, but like unless you're grilling on wood, and even then, like it takes a long time to get the flavor of wood, which is why smoking takes so long. The truth is, I would prefer 100% Maillard versus the 50% you're going to get with the hash marks. But you could also do it on a cast iron, or if you really want to splurge, go for these larger models that are electric that do have the hot plate on the bottom that can kind of fire off that flame, that whatever you're looking for, right? The smoke, the soot, and go about it that way. But truly, like I'm about flavor, and I prefer Maillard over soot.
So you mentioned the incentives for induction stoves for homeowners. How about commercial incentives?
So I'm actually digging into that, but like it depends on where you live. Like here in Pennsylvania, I partnered with the state of Pennsylvania to develop the CHECK program. Stands for, and bear with me because they love their acronyms: Cooking in Healthy Electrified Commercial Kitchens, or CHECK. So what's unique about it is it's an education and a rebate program. So you cannot access the funding without going through some education because they want you to understand what you're getting into, because it's not a simple one-to-one swap for a lot of folks, right? So it all depends on what you're doing. But there are rebates all over the country. I know New York is working on some stuff now. So it depends on where you live, but there are rebates out there for the commercial space.
Excellent, but not necessarily in the federal IRA program, huh?
I don't know. I have some folks looking into that now, but I haven't seen it. I'm told that there might be, or that there is, but I haven't quite been shown it. So I don't want to give out information I'm not 100% on.
Yeah, fair enough. There's still some stuff getting clarified about in that. It was a massive bill. Okay. Yeah. So one question that, Peter, yes, absolutely. Anybody that wants a copy of this recording, as long as it's okay with Chef, just send an email to Michael Murphy and he will make it available. It takes usually a week or two after before we have a clean copy ready, but happy to share that with you as well. So thank you for the question. Michael, back to you.
Thank you very much, Chef. That was great. Yes, I'm back and better than ever. And it's 4:00. Actually, it's 4:01 on this Thursday at the end of July. Murphy Brothers Contracting welcomes the rest of the audience. Oh, Earthkind Energy, Ron, take it away.
Thank you so much, Michael, and thanks everyone for joining us today for second of our exciting presentations. As those of you who have been paying any sort of attention to New York State over the last couple of years know, the CLCPA is the climate law in New York State. Right now, there are incentives to decarbonize. They're substantial, they're generous, and they make projects work on a whole different level. And if you don't do it soon, there will be penalties. And you can see that with Local Law 97 in New York City. It's kind of the forefront of that, but it's coming. If you'd like to see how a number of people in Hudson Valley are using these incentives and gaining 10 to 75% or better returns on their investment, you can watch Making Clean by Going Green. It's a half-hour presentation going through case studies. It's at that tinyurl.com/BCW. That's for the Business Council of Westchester -Earthkind. And you'll see studies on solar, on EVs and charging stations, on air and ground source heat pumps, how to get cash flow positive by day one with traditional low-cost financing, sometimes with zero cash down with public-private partnership for immediate and long-term savings. And now the incentive for the federal government that's a tax credit for for-profit entities can become a grant for nonprofits and municipalities. And please give us a call, Ron Kamen, for a free consultation. We're at that number. Happy to help anybody out, at least figure some of this stuff out to begin with. And with that, Michael, back
Thank
to
you, Ron.
you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.